Virtual light broadcast at lightworker.com. Today is Saturday, September 29th, 2012. This is segment 2. Please welcome Steve Rother.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, guys. We're here with Suzy Miller. I'm very excited about this today, Suzy. I know Sandy is just beside herself that she wasn't able to be here with you today to make this announcement, but let me read her introduction because Sandy does a marvelous job, obviously. Today's a very special day for all of us with Suzy. The Virtual Light broadcast has actually been chosen to be on the edge of a truly scientific experiment that Suzy's involved with. And we'd like to share with you about this because these approaches could actually change the way we look at everything from this point forward, because this truly is a blending of the sciences and the metaphysics in a whole new way, which is really magical for us to see. And it's not only validation for us, but it's validation for them. The connection and the results that we're getting is just absolutely outstanding. So let me tell you what's taken place here. Many of you might have been familiar with the movie, What the Bleep. It actually opened a tremendous amount of interest in metaphysics in conjunction with science in a lot of different ways. One of the people that were involved with What the Bleep is William Teller. And William Teller is he's a physicist that was very much involved with this. I can read you all of his credentials, but it goes on and on and on and on. He's a very revered scientist in this world, and obviously very honored with his fellows. He is working with Suzy on a very interesting project. This particular piece is. Well, I'm going to let you describe the whole thing because I'll just kind of butcher this here in the beginning. But I really wanted to tell you that this is a groundbreaking trial that the both of you have started to work with. It has to do with the energetics and the energetically sensitive people that you have been working with for a very long time, and reaches into autism. Yeah. Tell us about this project. Tell us what's going on here.
Yeah. Dr. Tiller came forth about 8 months ago and suggested that some of the information that he had been researching around intention could also be utilized for children diagnosed with autism.
Interesting.
So this is a scientist from Stanford University who has done 40 plus years of research in intention. And with that intention, he has been able to prove that they can change different things. They've been able to change pH up and down. They've been able to change depression in individuals and create real changes through intention alone. And he has created an intention device that can actually project clear, coherent intentions into specific spaces. So when we met, my interest was obviously in autism and in the energetically sensitive population. I've been hearing for years, since 1999, that in 2012, that there would be an opening in the consciousness of humanity regarding who these children really are and their multidimensional nature. And so it's it's one thing to hear things in your head. It's another thing to actually see it begin to be manifest in the physical reality. And so what I noticed was that in 2012, all of a sudden, things just began to open up. There were TV shows and movies and things like that that just brought to consciousness, like the TV series Touch, just brought to consciousness, that these children are not disordered in any way, shape, or form. That they have a broader sense of truth, a broader sense of consciousness. So when Dr. Tiller and I began to have these conversations, putting these two things together, the fact that the children have been talking about, since 1999, that they would be showing up. And we're watching that within the certification process that I offer. We're watching kids show up of the parents within that process and in relationship to that process. But then all of a sudden he shows up. And now all of a sudden something that had been in my consciousness through connecting with the collective consciousness of the children, it was showing up as a scientific experiment, which was huge. So basically what this scientific experiment is going to do is it's going to take 100 families It is going to use the collective consciousness of the children to help dictate the kind of intention. And so Dr. Tiller has been wonderful in sending me the intention, and then the collective consciousness of the children says, change that, turn this over here, let's make it this way. So it really is metaphysics and science coming together, which is amazing. But basically what the children have said is that they have indicated that in order to incarnate fully into the human condition, that it's really a matter of vibrational frequency. So until such time where the collective consciousness is at this level of frequency, they can't be here. And at the same time, they're holding so much amazing, I mean, the information that's available in that, where they play, is just phenomenal. It will change all of humanity when it is actually able to be grounded and to be here. So as as these children have been saying, is as they are able to be present, and this intention device will do just that, it will create an intention that alters the space that they live in and day out. We've already seen through the certification process that when you change somebody's awareness around things, these children are able to come in and be more present. This is going to take that to a whole new level.
And that's your certification process of your program that you teach,
yes, the
which is now in 11 countries, I understand?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, yeah,
Very
we're getting
nice.
quite a few now. It's
Very
really
nice.
nice. So as this intention is broadcast, the intention is twofold. One intention for the child, one intention for the parent. The intention for the child is to integrate into this time-space reality. Actually, I think Dr. Tiller says integrate into their bio-body suits within this time-space reality. And the intention for the parent is to support that, to be able to allow that to happen. Because when the very person that is in your household day in, day out supporting you sees you as anything other than brilliant, we know that that begins to diminish, what we can reveal back to that person. But what's interesting is if the parent is also supported in that space to keep, I always say that the kids are descending and the parents are ascending, and we're going to meet in the middle here pretty soon, and it'll be pretty exciting.
I understand what you mean with that too.
And so as they allow that space, these children will show up. And what the children have offered is they're not going to show up like we show up. They're not going to show up as we have been before, because that's not what we've asked for. They're going to show up with the information that they hold in those other realities, in those other realms. And just by virtue of the fact that this information will be here, you're going to watch science change. You're going to watch education change. You're going to watch everything. You're going to watch our collective consciousness change simply because they're here. And I got to say, again, it's one thing to hear it in your head, and it's another thing to have the outer landscape step up in front of you and say, this is a possibility and potential. And not only is it a possibility and potential, but it's something that we can really affect science here. We can affect the way scientists believe things work. At the current functioning of the scientific community, they don't believe that consciousness has an effect on anything in our physical reality. And yet, this experiment will give the opportunity to show that, plus also bring a whole level of consciousness here that hasn't been able to be anchored here before. So I'm beside myself happy.
Well, you've done incredible stuff, and I kind of shortchanged your introduction a little bit.
Okay.
Well, because we've been talking about you. You've been on the show before. You're part of the family. We consider you. So we didn't go into a great deal of instruction, but you started as a speech pathologist. You started at a totally different approach, working with the kids and working in that area. Entirely different. And of course, now today you're doing radio shows and speaking all over the world in your books and really making a difference in a lot of those areas. So This is really outstanding stuff you're doing here.
So it was a big jump from speech language pathologist to
I'm sure it was.
multidimensional communicator.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was.
And then to talk to a scientist about multidimensional communication has been a lot of fun.
And you're dealing with the kids. You've approached it from the kids. You've worked with the kids, and the kids are easier to work with. I deal with adults that have similar situations.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because once we get to adulthood, after having all these years of having them and us, to have somebody that can actually see who these people are and to let their hair down and to relax a little bit is just, you can see the years of stress that people have been under by having this hypersensitivity that they've been hiding.
Well, we see that in the certification process all the time because a lot of the certified practitioners themselves were energetically sensitive children. They were the precursors for some of these children that are coming in diagnosed as autism or other energetic sensitivities. And it's almost as if as they begin to understand who these children really are, and as the children begin to have their own voice and share who they really are, it is like that release of, oh, that's me.
I get to play a new game.
I get to play a new game, and I get to play the real game.
Yeah.
You know, the children used to always say that, you know, there's the world and there's the real world, and theirs is the real world. So. Well,
and I love what you said about them meeting us in the middle, because a lot of at least the adults that I've dealt with, and they come to me because they have problems.
Yeah.
They believe something's wrong with them. They don't actually realize that they're moving faster than the rest of the world, and they've been spending most of their lifetime trying to lower their vibration to fit in.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what you're dealing with here.
Absolutely. And the opportunity, you know, this will start with 100 families.
Yeah, tell us about that. And is it open to people? Yeah.
It's open to people around the world. It will be open to 100 families initially. That is, unless, of course, we get a few donations, and then we'll reduce that. But even at that, you know, we're talking about, at the very most, $250 for both the parent and the child to participate in this experiment. Next to nothing for something that would support the kids in this way. But it will be a year-long experiment, open to 100 families, worldwide. So the intention device that Dr. Tiller uses has been broadcast from Payson, Arizona, all the way to Berlin so far.
So distance is not a problem.
So distance is not a problem. At least the distance between here and Berlin so far is not a problem. But what's amazing is, you know, they can participate. It will support the parent and the child. We are going to ask parents to do a little bit of a pre-survey, and they will also be required to give some quarterly updates. But other than that, it's a pretty user-friendly kind of experience, because once the intention is offered, they go about their lives. They just go about their lives and do what they do. So, and notice what they notice.
And notice the difference and pick up the difference.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Has anything like this ever been attempted before that you're aware of?
It's never been attempted before, and we've got research like around the depression kinds of things that Dr. Tiller has done so far that have been very successful.
And by that you mean sending intent to help people reset their energy who have depression.
Yeah, he actually did on his website on tiller.org. He has some white papers, and on those white papers there is a discussion, I think it's paper 16, is a discussion about this anxiety and depression experiment. They took 2 locations, and they broadcast a signal to one and not to the other to watch what was going to happen, and it was significantly different in the way in which they responded to that. So I'm just excited to get it started, and more importantly, Dr. Tiller and I had a call with 30 people who were interested in the experiment to start. We had that call not too long ago, and even on the call, you know, I believe we are the intention device, you know, obviously. Science needs a little bit more than that, but I believe we are the intention device. And on that call alone, I had 4 or 5 people immediately call me back and said, what happened to my child during that call? They were out in the yard, they were playing, they were fine, they were calm. There was a noticeable difference just by having the conversation. And I think putting all this together, watching what the kids have been saying for so long, having Dr. Tiller show up in the outer landscape at this time, and have these parents who are already aware to be able to kind of reflect back that this is where we are. I mean, it's like, yay.
You made it. It's like we're actually going to do this.
We're going to do it.
We're actually going to do this. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So.
Very, very nice. Very,
Thank you.
very nice. Now, you and William Tiller have been doing this for. You've been together talking about this and making these connections here. And
we've been discussing this for about 8 months now,
okay.
And it will commence as soon as we have 100 families, or we have donations that equal the $25,000 that it'll take to run the experiment. And that's the other thing that I love about him and about this process. Number one, it's a scientist speaking back to me about the very things that I know about this population from having those telepathic communications with them. It's also a scientist coming and saying that not only does he want to do this, but he thinks it's so important that for humanity that he will, we're covering the cost of what it costs to project this out and nothing else. So he just wants to see this happen as much as I do. So it's really exciting to see.
Well, that's incredible. All right, now tell me a little bit about your work too, because your work is now you're teaching facilitators out there. Like I said, you have 11 different countries that you're working with people in now. Tell me a little bit about your program, and people want to find out more about what's that like.
Yep, I have something called the Awesomism certification process. And, the children way back when said autism is awesomism, so that's where awesomism came from. But basically, we have close to 50 practitioners now. They are in 11 different countries. What amazes me about these individuals are these are not people who want to simply change their own family dynamic. These are people who are interested in changing their countries, so I always smile, there's one person in all of Japan, or there's one person in all of New Zealand. And at the same time, I also tell them they're rocking that world. But bringing up that level of consciousness, because we have to have this information. People have to understand who this population really is. They need to start looking in that direction so that they can see, have a different perceptual reality. Mm-hmm. They need to be looking in certain directions. So the certified practitioners are learning both how to shift that perceptual reality for people. They're also shifting their own, obviously. They are aligning and connecting with themselves, and they are also, from that place, learning how to telepathically communicate with the kids. I'm convinced that, there are all kinds of things out there, but I want to hear from the kids. And I want to hear from the kids about everything, about this intention experiment. It got right down to, do you want it this way or do you want it that way? So the certified practitioners are doing that. The certified practitioners have also split into 2 subgroups. And they did that very naturally and organically, which has been so much fun to watch. The one group is called Parent Pathfinders. This is a group of certified practitioners who have their own website, which is parentpathfinders.com. And they have, they're just supporting parents and really working on the ground, day in, day out, kind of using awesomism as a foundation and expressing how they experience their lives day in and day out. So very practical, on the ground kind of running experience. We also have another group called Awesomism Ambassadors. And the Awesomism Ambassadors just launched their new website. And that one I love both of them. This one tickled me because we have, all of these different certified practitioners with all of these different gifts and skills. Mm-hmm. They offer their own, presentations, they offer consultations, they offer information directly from the children, and yet it's one website where you can go and you can get all kinds of different flavors of people because they all have their own way of doing it. Right. But I love that website as well, so that's awesomismambassadors.com. And so it's been a very natural, organic
It's
unfolding.
all kind of, just finding its own levels, isn't it?
And it's every single time we seem to need something, the next piece of the puzzle just absolutely falls right into our laps. It's just been beautiful.
And when you teach these people, you're teaching them online? Do you have courses in person?
Yep. We do the level 1 certification 3 times a year. We're currently in the middle of one. We'll start another one in January.
Okay.
It's all done via teleconference, some of it via Skype. There is a level 2 certification process, which is primarily a clearing process. It's primarily building coherence in your energy so that the information that you get is coherent. We are in the middle of one of those right now, too. We only do that twice a year. And in January, we'll start the Osmism certification process level 3. And that's the one where we get to have lots of fun.
Yeah, good.
Because that's really working interdimensionally and co-creating with the children. So that's the part that gets really fun for me anyway. Yeah.
The connections and the autism came from your study with the kids originally.
Yep.
Because from the information that I've always gotten about autism was that we just don't understand it yet. It's just it's a multidimensional piece where they sometimes can't decide which dimension to be in or which dimension to function in sometimes. Right. And to work with that is just astounding. But a lot of the new work with quantum mechanics is showing that our intent changes our reality. The newest stuff from quantum mechanics is they believe now that there are atoms and particles floating all over the place out here, and that when we turn and look at them, they arrange themselves just at the last second to create the world that we think we see. And you are about to prove this. This is exactly the area that you're working with.
The part of the intention piece, I've watched this, like I said, in very subtle ways where parents have a new understanding of who their children are. And now they look at the child and the child is different.
Right.
Now if we can take that same kind of intention and fill the space, literally fill their physical space with a higher dimensional frequency.
Right.
Now all of a sudden those children that are functioning in that higher dimensional frequency show up in a whole new way. And the individuals who are in that space with them are capable of seeing who they are. That's when it's a game changer. That's when everything changes.
That's when they take a step up. They see everything from a different, beautiful, very nice.
Yeah, and that's when the parent can also really, own who they are as well, because that's the other piece of this. These parents really did come as forerunners. I totally believe that they chose to fast track themselves in this incarnation. And then they have these beautiful children who they either understand or don't understand. And now I love the moment. I can already see it in my head, the moment where those lights go on in both directions. You're going to have parents meeting their children, not as parent and child, but soul to soul. And that's going to be pretty exciting.
Redefining every part of it is very, very beautiful. Very beautiful. Yeah. You are making a difference on this planet, my dear.
Thank you.
I just want to let you know that. We're all behind you. We're all cheering you on, and know that we all know what the outcome's going to be. We just don't know how it's going to show up yet at this point. But it's very magical to see you actually step up and be a part of this in this way. So congratulations, and thank you for breaking it here on the show first. It's very magical for us.
Thank you.
Suzy Miller, everybody. We'll be back with more from the Virtualite in about 3 minutes.